The Rage Experiment. My name is Dylan, and I'm tired. Not of life. Life's been calm lately. A beautiful wife, a cozy home, 2 daughters, Grace and Jane, and a job that doesn't make me want to carve boredom out of my skull with a scalpel. I'm an architect. Yes, a real one. I draw up buildings, make sure roofs don't fall on people's heads, and convince clients that panoramic windows facing north aren't exactly cozy. Just like the glossy brochures about a former special agent's happy life. But in the past, I wasn't just an agent. I was the last bastard they sent when everything had already gone to hell and someone needed to fix it, not investigate. I was the hammer, the fixer, and now I'm the dad who makes pancakes in the morning and designs elementary schools. Which is exactly why I was hunched over the plans for a new hotel when Florence called. Dylan. Her voice was different. Not angry, not scared, but hollowed out, like everything had been drained from her, leaving just an empty shell. The girls are in the hospital. Grace and Jane, they're unconscious. The doctors don't know what's wrong. Come. I don't remember how I got to the car. My mind was a vacuum. Just one thought repeating, this can't be. This can't be. This can't be. And yet it was. When I stormed into the ER, the nurse recognized me right away. I must have looked like a man ready to beat someone to death with a stethoscope if they didn't tell him everything was going to be okay. Dylan Trace. I nodded. They're in intensive care. The doctors haven't found the cause. Temperature's normal, blood pressure's fine. They just shut down. At the same time, I stepped into the room. Grace and Jane lay side by side, hooked up to machines. So small, just like they were every morning when they'd come running to me shouting, "Dad, there's an owl in the tree." Now, only silence and the flicker of monitors. Florence sat nearby, hands clenched like a prayer could cancel out chemical reactions. We didn't speak, just stared. Finally, she whispered, "They were fine this morning. Had breakfast, played, watched cartoons. Then suddenly, they just collapsed." I nodded. My mind was blank. Except for one familiar feeling, the one you get right before a mission when they throw you a photo and say, "This is the one responsible." My phone vibrated. I looked at the screen. No caller ID, but I knew who it was. Oh, I knew damn well. I answered. "You son of a bitch," I said. The reply was laughter. Hoarse, raspy, straight from the grave. Just like I remembered. Because I'd blown him to hell 10 years ago. Edward Craven. A lab in the desert. Biological weapons. I'd walked away from that mission certain the only thing left of his team was a DNA smear on the sand. "Hello, Dylan. Good to hear your voice. You wouldn't believe how boring life's been without you. How the hell are you alive?" I saw it burn. I stepped into the hallway so Florence wouldn't hear. "You always were too sure of your heroics. Not everything that burns dies. What did you do to my children?" "Just gave them a little gift. It's called Thanasin Beta. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Inspired by Greek mythology. Silent as death. Experimental agent. I assure you, I used only the finest dose. You're dead. I'll find you. And this time, there'll be nothing left. Not even ash." "Oh, don't start that tired special agent bravado, Dylan. We both know you're on a leash. You've got 60 hours before Thanasin Beta melts their CNS like a plastic bottle in a microwave. Where's the antidote?" "Ooh, straight to business. I like that. Here's the deal, sweet daddy. I've already sent you the coordinates. It's a base in eastern Syria. Terrorists from a group called Al-Dakr. Nasty folks. Well, almost as nasty as me. They've got vials of a biological prototype, Hedron 12. I need a sample, and you're going to get it for me. Alone. No backup. No theatrics. Just you and your old skill set. Why the hell should I trust you? Because you have no choice. Come back. You get the antidote. Don't. Well, at least you'll have peace of mind. And 2 little coffins. How did you find us?" "You? Easy. You leave a trail like an elephant in a glass shop. And your girls, so sweet. So naive. And, oh God, so perfect for testing. Dylan, don't think you're in the game. You're just a pawn. Just try not to screw up the board." Click. The line went dead. I stood in that sterile hospital hallway, feeling concrete pour into my chest. The world had changed again. No more peaceful breakfasts, no more blueprints, no more lazy weekends. There was a mission. There was a timer. Florence stepped out of the room and walked up to me. "You know something?" There was no accusation in her voice. Just fear. "Who was that?" I looked at her. At the woman I dropped weapons for. The one I became normal for. Hell, I learned how to make pancakes because of her. I have to go somewhere. Dylan, it's not up for debate. Or they die. She was silent, then whispered, will you come back? You knew who you married, I said, and walked toward the exit. When I got in the car, a new message appeared on the screen. Coordinates. Somewhere in the desert. No details. No support. No survival plan. Just bring me what they have, and maybe you'll get what you need. I laughed. Loudly. Bitterly. Son of a bitch. Here we go again. I dialed an old number. Hey, Crow. Got a job. I'm retired, came the same lazy voice. Your hands still smell like gunpowder. Don't lie to me. I need a rifle, a fake passport, a sat phone, and maybe that bag you hid in Arizona. What? Saving the world again. Bargain bin James Bond. No. Just the people who actually deserve saving. Crow sighed. Same address. Take what you need. But Dylan, if you see your shadow again, shoot first. This isn't about shadows anymore. It's about the monster I didn't finish. And my daughters. Got it. Take the Night Wolf. It has everything. Even a little hope. I hung up. The back panel in the garage opened. There it was. The old Jeep, covered in dust, but engine intact. Hidden weapons compartment still locked and loaded. I smiled for the first time in 24 hours. Let's find out who should have died back then, you bastard. You know, there is a special kind of loneliness in the desert. Even the wind doesn't whisper here, it growls. It scrapes your face with sand as if it wants to erase your memory, your name, and your fingerprints. When I drove up to the coordinates that bastard had sent me, the sky was as deathly pale as the faces of those who must have already felt that luck had abandoned them today. I left the Jeep about a mile away from the site. The coolness of the night had just begun to give way to heat, but I knew the heat would not be my enemy. People would. Living targets with rifles and the stench of cheap testosterone. That was the real task. I pulled my old kit from the back, tactical vest, a SIG pistol, 2 spare magazines, 1 blade with Jane's name etched into it, and my carbine. My faithful old carbine with a suppressor, like an aged dog, rusted but still biting. Well, beauty, I whispered, checking the rounds. Shall we have some fun? The facility was well protected. An outer fence with towers. Between them, open ground, scattered with gravel and here and there, scrubby bushes. Camouflage was not for decoration here. They shot without warning. On the left tower, a man in a mask was smoking, enjoying the morning fresh air, until his brains ended up on the outside. PFF, a soft shot. His body folded gently and sagged over the railing like a forgotten rag on a clothesline. The first one. From below, someone shouted in Arabic, Ahmad, are you alive up there, idiot? Yes, he's alive. Only now he speaks exclusively with the Holy Spirit. I muttered, shifting position. I slid down into a shallow dip, ran between rocks, and came up near a cargo van. 3 of them were talking by the hood. One scratched his ass with a rifle. Another was chewing something, probably dates. The third had a tablet in his hands, watching TikTok, by the look of it. Well, time to add some content to their feeds. I crept closer, pulled out my knife. I don't like wasting bullets on those who don't yet realize they're already corpses. I slipped up to the first. The blade slid into his side like butter. He gurgled, and that was his only contribution to the morning's symphony. The second didn't have time to turn. A blow with the butt broke his nose, and he slid down the hood. His skull was a convenient container for my second bullet. The third finally realized that TikTok wasn't the most important thing in life, especially when your ear starts leaking brains. He dropped the tablet, but never reached for the rifle. I shot out his knees. Oh, you look like a half-assembled mannequin from IKEA, I said, crouching beside him, pressing a finger to his lips. Shoo, don't tell anyone you pissed yourself from fear, all right? He moaned, and I drove the knife into his heart. No anger, just work. I moved on along the perimeter like a ghost, leaving behind only corpses and questions no one would ever answer. Some tried to fight back. One spotted me from a tower and fired a burst, but he was too impatient. I shot him in the crotch. Sometimes old-fashioned methods are the most effective. Now your kids will come from a test tube, buddy. Through the mesh of the fence, I spotted 4 more by a truck. One was fiddling with the engine. 2 others were laughing, pointing at his rear end. Their sense of comedy was primitive. I pulled out a smoke grenade. Old, but still sprightly. Threw it behind the truck. Panic erupted instantly. What the hell? Gas. Who the F? I stepped out of the fog like an angel of vengeance. Only instead of a harp, I had a knife. And instead of a halo, a helmet dusted with sand. The first, throat. The second, stomach. The third tried to run, but I shot him in the back. He fell, thrashing. No, buddy. We're not finished yet. I knelt beside him. Do you know how Thanasin Beta works? I do. I've seen what it does. It kills in silence. Just like me. I stood and crushed his head under my boot. Not because it was cruel, just because I was in a hurry. Next stop, the storage containers. 2 guards with rifles loitered by the door. I waited until one stepped away to take a piss. His stream wasn't even finished when I cut his artery. The second managed to raise his weapon, but I threw my knife. It sank into his eye, clean, effortless. I grinned. Should have been farsighted, my friend. Bodies were dropping like wheat under a scythe. They weren't poorly trained, just overconfident. They never imagined someone would stroll into a terrorist den like a bakery. By one of the huts, a guy sat with a radio, reporting something. I shot him in the throat. His voice had been lousy anyway. Then I noticed a sniper on the water tower. Almost invisible, but his cigarette smoke betrayed him better than any laser sight. One shot, right between the eyes. Smoking kills, I whispered. Especially you. The sand began to drink blood. I kept moving forward, step by step, death by death. Nothing in my head but their faces. Grace, Jane, their small bodies hooked up to machines, and the vile grin of that bastard who called himself the god of bioweapons. On the way to the hangar, I stumbled upon the largest group yet. 7 of them, standing around, drinking tea, laughing, probably discussing which prisoner to torture next. Well then, I walked up as if they were old friends. Boys, I've got just one question. Who's got sugar? And then chaos broke loose. The first went down instantly, a bullet to the temple. The second dropped his teapot, and his jaw along with it. I shot him in the knee, rushed in, elbowed his throat, broke his nose, and finished with the butt of my rifle. The others opened fire. I rolled behind a metal crate, fired a short burst in response. 2 fell. 2 more tried to flank me. One got a knife in the gut, the other took a pistol to the back of the skull. The crunch that followed sounded like more than just bone breaking. His last look, a mix of surprise and pain, was almost pleasing. One was left. He ran. He ran like a deer. But I am the hunter. I followed, calm, steady, caught him at the wall. He fell to his knees, gasping. Spare me, please. I was just on guard duty. And I'm just here for my family. I pulled the trigger. Now you've got no excuses. And no head. Done. The perimeter was clear. I looked around. Bodies everywhere. Sand soaked in blood. I could feel it pulling me back. Not the years of architecture, not the mornings with pancakes, but those times when my hands still remembered killing. When death wasn't an event, but part of the day. Like a cup of coffee. I stood in the shadow of the hangar, and only one voice echoed in my head. Move fast, Dylan. No time for heroics. I smirked. But there's always time for slaughter. And I stepped forward. Inside it smelled of iron, sweat, and death. Familiar. Like the scent of an old suitcase you haven't opened in 10 years, but you know exactly what's inside. Only here, inside, were bastards. I slammed the hangar door open with my shoulder. The metal groaned, as if afraid of who I might drag in with me. Inside, dim lights flickered, concrete walls streaked with grime, shelves stacked with crates, rusting barrels, trash, weapons, and voices. What the hell was that outside? Ahmed's not answering. He's probably drinking again. Drinking, when his brains are splattered across the sand. I growled, and blew the first man's brains out. A burst. 3 more. All down. 2 on the left. One grabbed for his rifle, the other reached for his holster. I slid between the crates and emerged on the other side. A short burst. One took it in the thigh. Fell, screaming. The second, in the throat. I walked up to the first. Quiet, buddy. Screaming won't help. Well, except it makes it easier for me to aim. And I finished him off. Further down, a corridor. Concrete, with peeling wiring overhead like exposed intestines. I walked slowly. I had nowhere to rush. Everything that moved had to die. I knew it. And they would know it too. A door burst open to the left. Out charged a brute with a machete. Whoa-ah. Well, look at you, Kung Fu Panda. I knocked the weapon from his hands, slammed my knee into his groin. He doubled over. only without the panda. I lifted the machete myself, cut his arm from the shoulder, deep. He shrieked. Then, the neck. Quick, without unnecessary theatrics. The next two came out of the room, clearly not expecting surprises. One grabbed a grenade. Stop, or I'll blow us all up. Oh really? Did you even take the safety off, clown? I fired. The grenade dropped from his hand. Explosion. I dove behind the corner. They were gone. Well, almost. One was still breathing. Half his face pulp. He wheezed. Shoo, don't suffer. Here, like a pill. And I snapped his neck like a toothpick. I went on to the control room. The glass was tinted, but I could see the silhouettes. 4. One with a radio. 2 with rifles. And one fat man, his hands busy with something sticky. Bandages? Didn't matter. I opened the door and tossed in a smoke grenade. Gentlemen, guess who's come on shift? Laughter. Mine. They started shooting into emptiness. I entered from the side door. 1, in the back of the head. The second, in the ear. The third, in the chest. The fat one I left for dessert. He fell to his knees. Please. I'm just the cook. A cook, huh? And what? Do you fry guts here for breakfast? No. Relax. I don't eat after 6. And I shot him. I passed the storage cell. Behind the bars, some prisoner. One eye, face swollen with bruises. Who are you? American journalist. They kidnapped me. His voice trembled. Sorry, brother. Not now. Can't escort you out. Outside is clear. You can run while everything in here hasn't blown sky high. He nodded. Didn't even argue. Smart. The next area, barracks. Snoring. 5 bastards sleeping. Think war runs on a schedule? I walked in like a mother with a belt. The first, knife in the eye. The second, under the ribs. He never even woke up. The third, a shot in the stomach. He jerked, but didn't cry out. Good boy. The fourth tried to reach his rifle. Didn't make it. Bullet straight into the cerebellum. The fifth sat up, saw me, opened his mouth, but didn't have time to say mom. I kicked him in the chest and stitched him with the carbine. I wiped my forehead. Too much work and all manual. At least no tips required. I went on. Somewhere at the end there was a hall. Big. In such halls they usually hold meetings. Or torture sessions. Or something in between. I kicked the door open. Inside, a crowd. Rifles, knives, screams, gunfire. Someone yelling. Alert. I tossed a frag grenade. Then another. Then charged forward, continuous fire. A bullet grazed my shoulder. I answered, straight to the face. 1, 2, 3. I dove behind a crate. A grenade went off above my ear. Boom. Ringing in my head. From the left a thug rushed with a crowbar. I smashed him in the face with the carbine. Teeth. In a fountain. I saw 2 hiding behind the door. I tossed a Molotov in. The door ignited. They ran out, burning, screaming. One fell, rolling. The other fired blindly, killed his own. I walked up. Who said fire was bad advice? And I finished him. Only one left in the hall. The boss. Fat, bald, in an old U.S. Army uniform. Face like a dumpling after a fight. You? Who the hell are you? How did you? Surprised. So am I. To this day. I raised my weapon at him. Don't shoot. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. You know what I need. I'll tell you where the sample is. Just, I cut him off. There's one problem. I need to make sure you're not lying. And for that, I found a bolt cutter on the wall. Heavy, rusty, but strong. We need to cut something off. He backed against the wall. No, please. I grabbed his hand and set his fingers on the steel. Fingers don't matter, right? You never played the piano anyway. Snap. First finger. Scream. Where's the sample? I don't snap. Second. Where, bastard? Storage. Under the lab. Safe. Code 4897. There you go. And maybe I'll leave the third so you remember. Though I cut the third anyway. For symmetry. He dropped to his knees, clutching the bloody hand. I nodded. Lead me. Try to trick me. I'll cut off something other than fingers. He staggered ahead. We reached the lab. Floors in blood. Tables. Containers. Reeked of chlorine, like a cheap vet's office. He entered the code. The safe opened. Inside, a container. Steel. Seal with the logo of some long-dead corporation. There it is. Hedron, 12. I took the container. Turned. He looked at me, pleading. You promised. I promised not to cut off more fingers. Bang. Straight in the head. Silence. I found the generator room. There was explosives there. Real stuff. Plastic. A timer. Well, bastards. You had your chance. But you bet on the wrong guy. I set the charge in the center of the lab. 1, 2, 3. Wired them up. Timer for 10 minutes. Walked out, locked the door. I walked outside. Walked out alone. Everyone else stayed inside. In meat bags. Without names. Without heroics. Got into the Jeep. Placed the container on the seat. Grace. Jane. Daddy's coming. Behind me, the explosion tore half the base apart. Fire shot into the sky, like someone had decided to celebrate clean work with fireworks. I pressed the gas. Now all I had left was to return home. I didn't drive to the hospital. I drove home. For the first time in a long while, I wanted to sit in a chair, set a bottle in front of me, and just fall silent. For at least a few minutes. Florence was sitting in the dark on the floor by the wall, as if dissolved in her own thoughts. When I walked in, she stood up, slowly, without a word. I placed the container on the table. Is that it? Her voice was like the rustle of paper. Yes. The antidote will come if we hand it to that bastard. Do you trust him? I only trust the dead. This one is still alive. For now. I picked up the satellite phone and dialed the number he had left after that very first conversation. They answered immediately. Of course. Dylan. I knew you wouldn't let me down. His voice was smooth, cold, like slime. Did you bring Hedron 12? Yes. Where's the antidote? First the goods, then the service. Classic. You know how to trust, don't you, old man? You gave me poison. My children are in a coma. You have exactly one chance left not to die by my hand. He laughed. Disgusting, soft, as if savoring every word. So angry. I'll send the address. An abandoned warehouse outside Kanab, Utah. I'll send the coordinates. Bring the container, leave it. Then you'll get the antidote. Simple. Kanab, Utah. Highway 89, mile 217. Abandoned station Mojave Industrial. If I don't like the way you breathe, you stop. Don't forget, Dylan, you're not the one on the horse. You're strapped to the saddle. And ahead is the cliff. Click. The road to Utah was quiet. No signal, not a single call. Only the container on the back seat and thoughts I wanted to throw out the window. I drove along the gravel road until I saw what he had described. An abandoned station. Rusty gates. Broken floodlights. The carcasses of cars. The blood of the past had seeped into the concrete here long before me. I don't trust empty places that are too quiet. That means something is hiding. I parked, took the container, stepped out. Two figures came out of the shadows. Rifles, masks, black glasses. One tall, silent. The other shorter, nervous. Put the container on the ground and stepped back 5 paces. Where is the antidote? I asked, holding the container in my hands. No questions. You've already got everything. All I got was a list of corpses. I need medicine. That's not your concern. Step back. I looked at them, then at the building, then into the darkness, where something flickered. Movement. Too many eyes. An ambush. I smirked. You know, boy's bad idea. Suddenly, giving them no time, I grabbed the nearest one, the nervous one, turned him, tore away his rifle, and smashed the stock into the second. Bullets flew. I was covered, but I used the bastard as a shield. And I was already in cover, behind a burned-out truck. The container, beside me. One of the shooters lunged for it. I fired, hit him in the neck. He collapsed, choking on blood. From the left, a burst. I ducked, fired blindly. Heard a scream. Right after that, another rushed me with a knife. I knocked him down, punched him in the face. Knife to the heart. Through the jacket, through the chest, and out the other side. Don't worry. Now you don't need to button your coat. I stepped back. Bullets shredded the concrete. One bastard with a shotgun came from the flank. I tossed a frag grenade at his feet. He didn't even manage to shout. Meat splattered against the wall. I moved closer to the center of the warehouse. There, an old press. I hid behind it. Saw a group. 8 men, shouting, running toward me. I pulled out the grenade launcher. Yes, Crow had given me the toy just in case. Well, here's the case. Boom. Direct hit. 3 torn apart, 2 thrown back. 1 crawling. I finished him. Another tried to run. A bullet in the back. A shout behind me. Someone grabbed my vest. I turned, knife under the jaw. Slowly. Deep. Spine cracked. Warmth on my hand. I kept moving. A burst from a rifle. Bullets grazed me. 1 pierced the armor. Painful, but not fatal. I dropped, rolled, fired, 3 down. One jumped from above. We went down together. He tried to strangle me. I drew the second knife, drove it into his ear. He twitched, foam from his mouth. Finished. I stood up. Silence. Except for one. He had tried to crawl into the shadows, behind a container. I grabbed his leg, dragged him back like a sack of meat. Sat beside him. He was gasping. Young. Face bloodied, nose broken, eyes full of terror. You survived. Congratulations. Now don't whine, just talk. He stayed silent. I pulled out the knife, drove it under his knee. Slowly. Twisted. He screamed. Loud. Raw. Where is the antidote? I twisted again. He writhed, howled. I don't know. I don't know. Craven. It was him. He ordered us to kill you. To take the container and eliminate you. They didn't tell us. Only the ambush. Where is he? Where is the lab? The address. I'll tell you. Just take it out. The address. Now. Or I'll shove my elbow into the other leg. He choked, then forced it out. Los Angeles South Zone, Industrial District. Falcon Street, 73. Falcon Industries. Old building, basement. That's the lab. He's there. I nodded. Thanks. Hope you weren't too fond of your head. I drove the knife into his temple. He convulsed and went still. I stood. Around me, only the dead. The container, intact. Rifle, in my hand. Blade, in blood. I got into the car. Entered the address. Falcon Industries, Los Angeles. Falcon Street, 73. Craven. I'm coming. The city slept like a homeless man under a bridge, dirt under its nails and a knife in its pocket. South Los Angeles greeted me with the smell of motor oil, wet concrete, and cheap food sold at 3 in the morning from rusted vans. I parked a block from the address. Falcon Industries. A factory with nothing left but the sign, peeling walls, and rusty pipes reaching into the sky like broken fingers. Behind the facade, darkness. And people. Bad people. The kind who hide weapons like toothpicks and don't ask questions when the order is to kill. The wind drove trash across the asphalt. Rats, back and forth. The light of street lamps fell in patches, but I walked in the shadows. I always walk in the shadows, because only from there can you truly see who is alive and who is already not. The first two stood by the fence. One smoked, the other scratched his belly and tried not to fall asleep. I crept up, as always. Quiet. One breath, and they were both out of chances. Knife to the throat of the first, blade across the carotid of the second. They wheezed together, like an old door. I carefully laid their bodies on the ground. Don't take it personally, boys. You just had a choice, sleep or live. And you got it wrong both times. I walked along the wall. Cameras. Old, but working. I tossed a metal bar. It worked. One of the guards came to check. Tall, with a shotgun. He crouched, shining his flashlight. I was already behind him. First a strike to the neck. He lost his bearings. Then an elbow to the temple. He gurgled. I smashed his head against the concrete, like a rotten melon. The crack of the skull, like music. I vaulted over the fence. Quiet. I don't like theatrics. Theatrics are what remains in puddles after bullets. I work without effects. Only results. Next section, the truck lot. 4 of them hung around the row of semis. One sat on the hood. Another cleaned his pistol. The third listened to music in headphones. The fourth just smoked. I crawled under a truck. Came up on the other side. The first, blade in the ear. The second, bullet in the back. The third turned. Managed to draw, but I emptied the whole magazine into him. He never even figured out which way was up. The fourth ran. I caught him. Threw the knife. It hit between the shoulder blades. He fell to his knees, gasping for air. I walked up, pulled out the knife, and whispered, running is good. Especially if you have a goal. But you just didn't want to die. The problem is, I am the goal. And you ran straight to me. Lights came on in the building. Someone noticed the missing patrol. I sped up, knowing movement would begin soon. I skirted the edge of the warehouse, spotted a group at the entrance. 6 of them, one with a machine gun. Laughing. One showing pictures on his phone. I threw in a smoke grenade. Panic. I stepped into the thick cloud, started shooting. The first, chest. The second bolted sideways, too slow. Bullet in the temple. The third fired blindly, sat down hard when I shot through his thigh, then his forehead. 2 tried to run. 1, in the back, clean. The other I caught myself. In close combat. He was strong, swinging a knife like in the movies. I parried, drove a strike into his stomach, slammed my knee into his face, and when he fell, I plunged the blade into his liver and twisted. He gurgled. "This isn't an action flick, pal. The pretty ones don't survive here." I walked into the hangar. It was dark inside, but I heard footsteps. Noise. Whispering. Someone was dragging crates. I stayed hidden in the shadows, and around every corner, another death. One walked past, took a bullet in the back of the head. His body crashed down. Another tried to turn on the light. I shot through his hand. He screamed, and by then I was already there. The knife went into his neck, and I held him until he went still. A group in the far corner, 7 of them. Rifles, radios. They were hunting me. I found them first. Threw a frag, 3 torn apart. The rest ran. I picked them off one by one. One hid behind a barrel. "Bad choice. You do realize I know where you are?" I shouted. He stayed silent. I shot the barrel. It exploded. So did he. By the rear entrance there were more. 2 with flashlights. One saw movement, pointed the beam. I tossed a flashbang at their feet, burst out and shot point blank. One flew back, the other staggered. I walked up and finished him. On the roof, a sniper. I sensed him. An old skill. I climbed the fire escape. He was aiming toward the gates. Never thought he was already flanked. I stood behind him. "If you were smart, you'd smoke." I love smoke. It calls to me. But you sit here clean, and this is the result. I knocked his rifle away and threw him down. His screaming body parted with life somewhere halfway to the asphalt. Below were the last. The stubborn ones. One held a heavy caliber. Saw me, started spraying. I hid behind a concrete column. Bullets chipped it away, but I endured. Then, the rush. I was behind him, struck his elbow, twisted, broke it, kicked his knee. He collapsed. Did that hurt? It'll get worse. And I smashed his face into the wall. Once. Twice. On the third the wall was red, and his face no longer was. The final group, by the tanks. I picked up a rifle, climbed onto a container, and started taking them out one by one. They didn't understand where the fire was coming from. Panic. One even started shooting at his own. Now that's what I call contributing to self-cleansing. I climbed down, picked up a knife. One was still twitching, clutching his stomach. "Want me to finish it? Or can you manage yourself?" He stared, tried to say something. I drove the knife in. Quick. Clean. Silence is golden. And you never had any. I wiped my hands, walked to the doors. The outer perimeter, empty. No one breathed. No one would stand again. I opened my flask. Splashed my face. Next, Craven. And if he thinks these bastards are his shield, he has no idea who he's trying to block himself from. I moved toward the entrance of the building. Inside smelled of chlorine, rotten secrets, and money. The kind that stains your fingers when you touch it and never washes off. The laboratory greeted me with the screech of metal, dim lamps, and the hum of cooling systems that maybe carried death itself. I walked the corridors like the ghost of an old debt. Every step a reminder to those inside. Reckoning has come. From around the corner, the first one. With a pistol. Didn't even manage to say who's there. The bullet went in under his chin and out through his forehead. He toppled back without a sound. 2 more behind him, heard the shot, rushed in. I dropped to one knee, double-tapped. One in the stomach, the other in the throat. Blood sprayed in a fountain, painted the wall like an artist's signature. I always leave an autograph. Noise above, more coming down the stairs. I threw a flashbang. Screams. Confusion. I stormed in and turned it into a fireworks show of flesh. One clutched his face. I shot his chest point blank. Another fired blindly. I shoved his barrel aside and buried the knife in his gut. I stood over him. "You picked the wrong shift, brother. Better off watching the coffee machine." I kept moving. In a side room, an arsenal. On the table lay a strange pistol, next to capsules. Transparent, filled with thick green liquid. Marked, injection rounds. I picked it up. "Thanks, Craven. Toys along the way, how thoughtful." Checked it. It worked. A syringe gun. Double-barreled. Silent. Lethal, if you know what to load. I took it and went on. The heart of the lab. A hall with terminals. Cold light, everything sterile. And in the middle, him. Craven. Gray, thin, like carved from snakeskin. He stood calmly. Hands raised. "Dylan, you made it through. Stubborn, as always. Where is the antidote?" My voice didn't rise. "No need." He smiled. "Of course. Just don't move." And I felt a barrel press against the back of my head. Cold. Metallic. Familiar. The voice behind me was too familiar. Don't make any sudden moves, Dylan. Florence. I froze. My legs heavy as lead. Slowly turned my head. She stood behind me, a pistol in her hand, ice in her eyes. What are you doing? My voice cracked. Even mine. Craven laughed. Surprise. Go on, darling, tell your husband. He earned it. Florence walked around slowly, stood to the side. Now I was looking straight into her face. You ruin everything, Dylan. All your life. You thought you were a hero? No. You're just destruction. And I'm tired of living in ruins. You made a deal with him? I made a choice. The right one. Craven gave me a way out. And I took it. You injected the poison into the children? Yes. Because they are yours. And I wanted it all to end. For my life to begin. Without you. Without them. The world tilted. My hands felt numb. But I held on. You're worse than him. He's a monster by trade. You, by vocation. Florence didn't even blink. Craven stepped closer, palms open. Now please. The container. I handed it over. Slowly. No jokes. He took it like a relic. You have no idea what power you held. Hedron, 12 is not just biological weaponry. It's humanity's reset. Millions will die. Billions will pay. I will become a god. I looked at him. And the antidote. He smirked. You won't get it. Neither you nor your little brats. You'll rot. You're just a dumb courier. Period. And I'll keep screwing Florence while I bring my plans to life. And then 3 guards entered the room. Rifles ready. I looked at them. Guys, maybe you had a smoke break, but I'll say it again. Bad idea. With a sharp move, I slammed my elbow into Florence's face, knocking the pistol away. Dodge, fall, roll. Gunfire erupted. Bullets tore through walls. Monitors exploded in sparks. I ducked behind a console, drew the syringe gun, loaded a capsule, peeked out, fired straight into Craven. Craven screamed. What did you do? What is this? I roared. It's your own virus, bastard. The same one you pumped into my children. Let's see how you live with it. Craven went pale, clutched his leg, where the capsule was buried. Florence ran away. Panic. Her heels flashing, as if she still thought she could fix something. Craven was screaming, clutching the leg where the capsule stuck, and I was already moving. The 3 bastards who had come in with him didn't react at once. Mistake. The first reached for his rifle. Too late. I lunged at him, grabbed his arm, and drove the knife under his vest into his side with a sharp thrust. He howled, jerked. I pulled the blade out and drove it in again, under the collarbone, then into the throat. Fast. He collapsed, wheezing like a clogged sewer. The second opened fire. I dove aside, rolled, came up behind a column. His burst ripped through the equipment, sparks spraying. I slipped out the other side, caught the moment when he was reloading, and fired twice, stomach and chest. He flew back, crashed onto his spine, glassy eyes staring at the ceiling. The third was quicker, leapt into cover, tried to flank. Didn't work. I came up head on, jammed the pistol into his gut, and fired. He folded. Then I grabbed his collar and slammed his face into a concrete beam. Once. Twice. The third time his teeth spilled out like loose change from a torn pocket. Come on then. Fight, defender of evil. Or are you done with your career plans already? He gurgled something bloody, and I finished it. Knife in the throat, twist, and the body went still. They were no longer breathing. And Craven was running, as best as he could. I got up, brushed the dust from me, and walked forward slowly. I went after Craven. On the bridge between 2 sections, her. Florence. Tears streaming, pistol in her hand. I'll kill you. You're worthless. I hated you my whole life. I ducked. A bullet whipped past over my head. She stepped forward, her heel caught in the metal grating. She jerked and went down. No. Yeah, and fell into a vat of chemicals. The viscous liquid took her like a hot bath from hell. Her skin began to bubble, peel off in strips. She screamed, drowning in her own flesh. Fire, acid, and death, all in one. I looked down. Well, darling, time for you to take a bath. Without salt. I went on. In the lab section, Craven, crawling, gasping. He reached the safe, opened it, pulled out a vial of antidote. Please, Dylan. I knocked the vial from his hands, picked it up. You wanted to live so badly, and now you squeal like a pig. He reached for me. Please give, I laughed. Relax. I only shot you with saline, just to let you taste fear. And now comes the real fun. I dragged him into a hermetic capsule, the chamber for the infected. Threw him inside, shut it. You loved your creations, Craven. Time to taste them yourself. I opened the container, pulled out the glass vial, cracked the chamber door, tossed it inside, slammed it shut just before the vial hit and shattered. Craven screamed. Blood streamed from his eyes, from his ears, from his nose. His body convulsed. His skin split like a boiling sausage. He thrashed, shrieked, slammed against the glass. Foam. Seizures. Eyes bulging from their sockets. Horror. I stepped to the panel, pressed the button. Disposal. Activated. A flash. Fire inside the capsule. A scream, then silence. Rest in hell, doctor. And don't forget a greeting from the family. I turned, found fuel cans, poured gasoline, lit it. Flames climbed, wrapped the whole building. I walked out, got into the car. The container with the antidote, with me. Grace. Jane. Daddy's coming. And the fire behind, just a backdrop. When I reached the hospital, the sun was rising. A pink dawn burned the horizon, as if even the sky understood I had walked too long through the night. I walked the corridor fast, but without rush. The nurses glanced up, wary, the kind of look people give when they sense a man who might have a pistol up his sleeve or a heart in his pocket. I had both. Room 312. I pushed the door. They lay there, my girls. Small, silent, under the machines, as if in crystal capsules. Grace stirred just a little, her way of saying, I'm still here. Jane lay still, almost as if asleep. Florence would never enter this room again. And thank God. I came to Grace. Reached out, stroked her head. Daddy's here, sweetheart. It's all right. We made it. From the inner pocket, I pulled the vial. Small, clear like a tear. The label scrawled by hand. Antidote, T-beta. Inside, salvation. Real. Not a promise, not a hope. A true chance. Doctor, come here. Now. I have the antidote. The doctor, a man in his 50s, tired, balding, but with intelligent eyes, entered, looking at me as though I held the Holy Grail. Where did you get this? He asked in a whisper. In hell. I just dragged it out of there. Inject it. Grace first, then Jane. He didn't argue. I suspected he had long stopped asking unnecessary questions. I stood while he gave the injections. Time stopped. My heart beat not in my chest, but in my ears. Grace moved, just a little more. Jane, her lips trembled. Daddy. A voice, barely a breath, like wind through leaves. Yes, Jane. I'm here. You're with me. It's over. Eyes opened. Then Grace's. The girls coughed, began to stir. I felt my knees buckle, as if only now my body realized how much pain it had carried. I sat between their beds and sobbed. Yes, Dylan, who had strangled men with belts, now wept. Because life is not what you take. It's what you manage to keep. 2 months passed. We moved. Far. High in the mountains, where even a drone would need to recharge on the way. The town was called Silver Pines. A name like from a postcard, and the landscapes, exactly that. A lake. Pines. Silence. People didn't ask questions. And if anyone had heard of Dylan, it was that strange man building a house on the slope who didn't much like neighbors. The girls went to school. Jane, to an art club. Grace, to a music studio. I worked with my hands. A house. A real one. Every board, every nail, like a prayer. Let no one suffer again. And then one Sunday, when I decided to drive along the trail by the lake, it happened, the kind of thing that usually only happens in cheap romances. She fell off her bike, right in front of my car, on the turn where the road blends into gravel, where any idiot without brakes would end up in the ditch. But she wasn't an idiot, just a little clumsy. I braked, jumped out. You alive? Intact? Knees, elbows, pride. She laughed through a grimace of pain. Only my pride is hurt. And maybe my ankle. Yeah, let's check. I looked carefully. Swelling. Probably sprained. I lifted her in my arms. Hey, I'm not that helpless. Judging by the bruise, you're not much of a superhero either. Come on, Supergirl, into the Batmobile. She laughed again. That's how I met Rachel. In the emergency room, she clutched a bottle of water and kept trying to stand on one leg, as if convincing herself everything was fine. You embarrass me so much I can't even feel the pain anymore. That's not me, that's my charm. It works without a license. And without warning. After the examination, the doctor said, a light sprain, a couple of days of rest. I offered to give her a ride back. At first she refused. Then she agreed. Later, we saw each other again. By chance. Supposedly. Once at the store. The second time, at a book fair. The third, at the library, where she volunteered to help children with reading. And somehow it happened that one evening I invited her to dinner. With the kids. Have you ever cooked dinosaur-shaped pasta for children? She asked, watching me flip the cutlets. I always thought pasta was a life form. And then they asked for dinosaurs. I had to figure it out. Grace said, Rachel, do you know how to shoot too? Rachel chuckled, no, but I can throw slippers pretty accurately. Sometimes even right at the forehead. Jane whispered, Daddy smiles when he talks to you. Before, he almost never smiled. That evening we drank cocoa. With marshmallows. Rachel laughed, the kids laughed, and I sat there. Feeling something inside me, long dead, start to breathe again. A few more months passed. And then one morning I stood before the mirror, looked at my reflection and understood there was no more rage in it. It was gone, together with the shadows, leaving only scars as reminders, not of pain, but of strength. I gathered the children. Girls, what do you think about Rachel living with us? Jane shouted, yes. Grace came over and simply hugged me. We moved into a new house I had finished building. Together. 4 of us. A family. No hiding places, no weapons under pillows. Only life. Only mornings, tea, the sound of pines, and the steps of bare feet across wooden floors. Rachel looked at me in the morning and said, you make coffee so well that I'm ready not to kill you for snoring. I make sacrifices. You haven't heard me sing in the shower. That's worse than snoring. We weren't saving the world, but we were saving each other. And that is no smaller task. Sometimes I dreamed. Dust. Flames. Explosions. Faces. Blood. I would wake and feel her hand on mine. Warm. Alive. You're home, Dylan. No one shoots here. Except for ducks. Ducks don't count. They bring it on themselves. The children grew. I taught them how to build. She taught them how to listen. Together we taught them how to love. And every time I closed my eyes, I knew it was not in vain. Everything I had done was for this. For mornings in a house filled with the scent of bread and laughter. I wasn't a hero. I was just a father. A man. A human being who did everything not to lose love. And, damn it, I succeeded.